Media companies have been purging journalists for the past few weeks as revenues continue to fall. This is bad news for an industry that was already clinging to life. First of all, we've got your videos that you've done on this have been right on point. When we first started seeing layoffs of BuzzFeed, we saw it with HuffPost, we saw it with Gannett. The problem that they're not understanding is, first of all, part of the problem is they're not delivering real news anymore.
Right.
Okay, HuffPost, if you read HuffPost, it's so ideologue, there's no middle of the road. You know, it's if you have this ideology, then you're going to read HuffPost. If you have this ideology, then you're going to read another side. HuffPost, I predict, will fail. HuffPost in 2 years will be out of business because whoever's running the program believes that the only thing you can do is tell one story. Same thing, when we look at Gannett, it's a different analysis in my way of looking at it. What the industry did is started cutting the news reporters, investigative news reporters. This is a snowball effect. This is going to get a lot worse before it gets any better. BuzzFeed, this is not the first cut that
Right.
BuzzFeed did. They've been cutting a lot. I mean, in 2017, they cut more than 100 employees. Nobody talked about it, and then we started seeing this is a snowball. If you're an investor in this thing, I would run away. What's your take?
Well, see, what's interesting here, especially when you look at BuzzFeed or Huffington Post, is both of them had very small, but they were there, investigative journalism groups.
Really good, by the way.
They did. I mean, I have read phenomenal investigations on Huffington Post. They were one of the few people, along with The Intercept, who did stuff on C8.
Do you feel like that now?
Oh, absolutely not. No. And so that's the problem, though, is that they're not getting rid of the 15 signs that you love garlic bread. They're not getting rid of those reporters. They're getting rid of the ones who would go out there, get in the trenches, so to speak, and do real, honest-to-God journalism. You know, follow the money, follow the corruption. Those are the people who are gone because they're the most expensive. You got to fly in places. They need hotel rooms. So they cut the real people, the real news people, and okay, we'll keep the opinion folks. We'll keep these little pop culture quizzes because that's clickbait, and that'll still bring in some ad revenue. And it's pretty much the same thing with Gannett. They go more to opinion instead of reporting.
They don't really have reporters.
Right.
I mean, they're no. What they do is they consolidate news from several different sources.
Right.
But they're no different from me taking this telephone and saying, okay, well, what's the news of the day? I can find out everything I want to find out in consolidated sources where they're not going bankrupt. Ring of Fire, we're never going to go anywhere because we don't count on all that kind of we're well financed.
Right. What they do is they just take stories from the AP or Reuters and then publish them in their paper.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We don't have an investigative arm. But the point is, the stuff they're assembling is the same talking points.
Yeah.
You see, if you go to HuffPost, you're going to get the same talking points. Whether you agree with the left or whether you agree with the right, you can't do that. You've got to tell the stories, and I think that's what we try to do on Ring of Fire. I get plenty of criticism for sometimes protecting issues on the right, although I don't think you'll find anybody further to the left than me. But that's part of the failure. The other part of the failure is Facebook and Google are dominating the business. They're taking all the ad revenue away from the BuzzFeeds and the HuffPosts. And Verizon has better find a way to compete with that, or they're not going to stay in business. Yahoo's not going to stay in business. None of these folks are going to stay in business if we have this consolidation that keeps taking place with organizations like Facebook and Google. I mean, run-of-the-mill is going to be out of business.
Right, and also I'm glad you brought that up because Yahoo also had a phenomenal investigative journalist department that probably won't survive this. But you're right, because Google and Facebook, you can target the ads. I only want this to go to 18 to 25-year-olds in one city in Michigan versus I've got to pay $5,000 for this newspaper ad or this ad on the website. Maybe they'll see it. Probably 18 to 25-year-olds not going to see the newspaper ad. And so it is a little bit of innovation. I can target my ads. That works better for me as the advertiser. But it's killing journalism, and they have to find another way to make money. And there's plenty of ways out there. That's the problem.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. Okay, you and I, how many times have we talked about this story that in 1980 there were about 55 organizations, independent organizations that were involved in news. They were involved in, they gave us the news. Now there are 4, okay, in corporate media.
Yeah.
4 organizations own the books. Now this is not just news. They own books. They own the media, news media. They own all of these parts of the media that used to be owned by all these diverse kind of ownerships. This and we said that can never happen in social media. And now it's happening before our eyes. Facebook and Google. If you want to do yourself a favor, get off of Facebook, because Facebook is going to destroy your sources of other information. If they continue to grow and buzz and people like Verizon don't meet and they don't have meetings where they say we need to build a bigger digital media company that can compete with Facebook and Google, these folks are going to be out of business.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you with Huffington Post, I mean, Ariana Huffington made off like a bandit when she sold that, because ever since then, man, that whole thing's been going down. Not that it was phenomenal. I mean, she had issues. People weren't getting paid for anything.
Right.
But still, with considering how much money that site is losing now.
How much did she make? Hundreds of millions,
I think.
Okay, but the point is this. Now you look at it, it is like, I call it kind of celebrity polyester nosh. You know, it's the celebrities said this about Trump, Trump this, Trump that. Tell us stories that affect our lives, like we try to do on Ring of Fire. I mean, we tell stories about drugs that are killing people and, you know, environmental disasters, and you can't be single-minded. People don't want single-minded, and that's, I think, why we're flourishing. I mean, I love when they come on and they say, Pap, what's happened to you? You're sounding like a right-winger. I love that, because you know what the truth is.
Right.
But I'm going to say it anyway, because I'm not an idiot. You know, you have these people that just have, I call it the idiot mentality, where they drink the Kool-Aid and they never ask questions beyond that. I mean, this is Democrat. It must be right. It's wholly right because it's Democrat. This is Republican, so by God, it must be right. It's a tribalism that's killing the media. And how many times have you and I talked about that? I said, you know, you deliver Trump stories as good as anybody in the business. But at the same time, you deliver stories about the environment. You deliver stories about bad pharmaceuticals killing people. You deliver stories about Wall Street. You deliver stories about government entities that are causing wreaking havoc on the American public.
And when the Democrats screw up, we do not hesitate to go after them. And that's the difference. You know, never, and we've been saying this since 2008 with Obama, because we did our best to hold him accountable and push him to do what he needed to do. And people got mad, but the standard line I would give people is, listen, we're not cheerleaders. That's not our job to sit there and say, yay. No.
Yeah.
You hold them accountable. When they screw up, you tell them, you've screwed up. Stop doing this.
Yeah. I love this thing. I mean, people hate when I use the term celebrity cool, okay? But that's what the whole Obama administration, you know, projected, because he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's suave, he's debonair, he's a great speaker. You know, you want to like him. He's a likable person. But when he screws up, you got to talk about it. And so, but when we did that, it was like, oh my God, you know, you're talking about Buddha here. You can't, we've said this so many times. I have no heroes.
Right.
Do you have any heroes?
Not that I can think
I
of.
have no
Absolutely
heroes. And you know what? That's good. That allows us to, we don't hero worship here.